So I wanna say, to start with, that anything anybody has to bring up can still be brought up here in this forum as well. But when we only had a couple, we decided that, okay, what was our purpose in asking y'all? So our purpose was to know what we can improve, right? And so we brainstormed together and identified things that we think we can work on improving, okay? And then we also thought, well, what are some things that y'all might have concerns about that we could help explain today, you know, and just help you understand? You know, some things that we hear about at times that maybe you didn't present in the suggestion box, but we know it's come up before. So that's kind of why we thought we'd just bring up some things that we could think of that need to be explained, that we need to focus on, that kind of thing. But again, if anybody has anything like right now, and I will go ahead and say, one of the things that was put in the suggestion box, I'm gonna go ahead and have for next week, but we'll address the other one too. But does anybody have anything right now that you'd like to bring up? Okay, we'll just launch into kind of.
I do, I have a question.
Okay.
Recently in the kitchen, with staff getting meals, it's typically after all of the patients are served and whatever is left over. And recently, we were told that, leadership told, the kitchen that they were no longer able to give out meals. And I wanted to know what was the reason behind, declining staff the opportunity to eat a free meal when there's meals left over.
Yeah. So when we have meals every day, we provide staff meals if they're available. Sometimes they're not available. But we don't actually cook for the staff. So if we have meals that's extra, then the staff will be able to get them. I think there was some misunderstanding about that. And we had folks like trying to get a meal like even before the patient ate. So our first priority is to make sure the patients eat. If we have stuff left over, then we'll get it out. It's not that staff could not eat, but I think even dietary, we had a meeting about that because they were under the assumption that we cook more to make sure that everybody eats. And it affects, we don't do that because it affects the cost. Majorly, I think the price that we're paying for a meal is very inexpensive. But we cook, and if there's extra, then the staff can definitely have it.
And then the other piece of that is that, we tell the patients, well, that comes up at the next meal, but if they wanted more, it would come up at the next meal. So I guess it really doesn't, used to be that they'd just get it at the end of that meal, but.
And it is no salads. So we don't offer any salads, for staff. It's only the food that we cook.
And staff must have a meal ticket that they purchase upstairs.
Right, yeah.
Good question.
So it's not that they're not, it's just.
Maybe that's
depends.
something that y'all can consider instead of the cups, maybe passing out a meal card as a reward to some of the staff members.
That's a great idea, thank you.
You're welcome.
So one of the items that was put in the suggestion box, basically said that they felt that at times, and I should have brought it with me to read it, but that at times, leadership team members would target, patients negatively and even sometimes staff negatively. And so, you know, in our looking at that, obviously, you know, we need to look at that. If that's what seems to be happening from an outside perspective, we need to, each of us personally, be willing to hear that feedback and take a look at ourselves and see if, you know, if we are over personalizing and if it's kind of coloring our perception of things, you know. We, all of us in this room, all of us can get irritated by patients at times, right? But we, just as much as anybody else, need to be aware to check ourselves And so in talking about that together, about how we could respond to that feedback is, we talked about how, you know, if we're in that place where we know X patient kinda needles us, and we're not in a good place that day, you know, we might need to ask another member of the leadership team to tag in for us, you know, like, hey, I'm not in a good spot. I just feel like, you know, he or she's been pushing my buttons and I don't wanna, you know, come across poorly, and ask for assistance that way. The other way that we need to, get assistance is to ask for feedback from each other. So if I think that I see, if any of us think we see the other one kind of over-personalizing some situations and responding negatively, or if any of you see that, we want to encourage you to either let that person know directly or let your supervisor know or another member of the leadership team know, so it can be brought to anybody's attention, right? So it can be brought to our attention. We are not exempt from needing to grow and do better, you know, ourselves as well. So, we want that brought to our attention if one of you sees that, but that is something that, you know, I'm challenging all of us to be aware of, that could be happening, that we certainly don't want to have happen. Then, one thing that we know sometimes is, concern is the impression that, the leadership just picks and chooses who should be on a behavior contract. And so what we wanted to do is describe to you all what our process is in considering a behavior contract. You know, sometimes it takes a while because we wanna get everybody's input. We wanna get the whole picture about a situation. And that means talking with the therapist, nursing, means hearing what was brought up in staffing, it means talking with other people involved in a particular incident to get this side, that side. So, and our process is usually talk with somebody, third time behavior contract. And a behavior contract, I think there's some misconceptions too. It doesn't necessarily mean that the next step is discharge. On that behavior contract that the therapists sit down with the patient, it can be whatever the behavior consequence is at the time, which could be potential discharge, but not an automatic, that's the next step. Oh, they're on a behavior contract, if something happens, they're gonna get kicked out. That might not be what's been written on the contract. So the contracts themselves can have different levels of response in terms of consequence. Am I making sense?
And I was gonna say, like, the consequences, like, we have the template, but you can modify that, you know, we have on there, like, loss of privileges, you know, in terms of outings or dollar store, possibility of discharge, but if there's some other consequence that, you know, we hadn't thought of, that you thought of that might be something, you know, therapeutic for that patient, then certainly that could be added to the behavior contract.
And one of the things y'all might not know about is that, Andre keeps a behavior log for the leadership team, cause it's hard to keep track of everybody, right, in their situations. So we have this behavior log that we consult, like, how many times has John been talked to about whatever? You know, how many times has Sue been talked to about whatever? You know, and all those things go into decision-making about, and y'all's input. You know, we search out y'all's input as well. But, you know, there are a lot of pieces to the puzzle. I guess we want you to know it's not anything ever that's just like, you know, quickly decided on. Any other comments?
I think too, another thing is, the severity of it, cause I know that has been a concern, that I've been hearing about, like, why such and such is on a contract, but such and such is not on a contract. But we look at like, what the action is. John may do something, but, another client may do something and it's more serious. So we also look at that, like the severity of the behaviors, that's taken into consideration. One behavior could outweigh 2 or 3 behaviors if it's a serious behavior, so that's, I think that's important to know too, as we give out the behavior contracts.
Another concern, leadership team makes exceptions or seems like there might be favoritism for the dollar store or, you know, the group refusals. Like that we make exceptions or play favorites with one person and not another. But again, it might appear like that from the outside, but there are a lot of, you know, situations and circumstances that go into any of those kind of exceptions that are made. And sometimes it's that it was erroneous. Sometimes they're on the refusal list, and when we research it, we find out, no, in fact, they were in group, like on a weekend or something. So that happens, but it looks like, well, they're on the refusal list, you know, they shouldn't go. And I know there's like financial.
Yeah, sometimes people don't have money, or, you know, maybe they just got their card in the mail, or just different financial things that come up for them. So sometimes we do make exceptions for those people so that they can finally get a couple of personal hygiene items or something they needed at the store. Same thing for new patients. Sometimes, you know, we try to help them as much as we can. So, you know, we'll make an exception for newer patients sometimes.
House moves, sometimes there's questions about why people were moved in houses, you know, from one house to another, or why was this person moved and not that person moved? You know, you're gonna hear me say this over and over again, we try to investigate fully, we try to hear all sides of whatever the situation is. And sometimes staff members who aren't hearing all sides only have the one side. You know, you might only know one side and not know the other side, so it feels, you know, like, what's going on? Why did so-and-so have to move? But I guess I just want to assure you that we try to be very, you know, all-encompassing in looking at situations, in looking at what's gonna be best for the patients involved, what's gonna be best for that house, what's gonna be best for the whole patient milieu. Sometimes I know that it's happened, and this can feel like it's not fair, you know, or why in the world was that the way it worked out? It might be a situation where clearly one of the housemates was more guilty, right, of the negative interaction than the other one, but that's not the person who was moved, right? And I know that that can feel like, well, how come that person didn't move, and yet, you know, you moved my patient, or you moved that patient instead of the guilt, you know, the one who really was wrong. Well, you know, that might be a situation where, yeah, maybe every intention was to move the more guilty party, but as it was talked through and worked on, the other person was more saying, hey, it's not a problem, I'll move, I'm okay moving, you know, and we proceed. So there are just nuances that at times that happen that, you know, just not everybody is aware of how involved it is. And one of the things I wanna say right now before I forget to say it is one of our goals is to better communicate those nuances in the next morning staffing. If it's something that needs to be communicated with particular staff members, nursing or therapists or case man, you know, like right now, today, because it's a critical thing that you know this today, yes, we'll do everything in our power to make sure that you're communicated with what's going on right now. If it's not a today issue, our goal, my goal, is that in that morning staffing, there will be better feedback loop of, you know, what happened, why did it happen, just in a quick nutshell, not to belabor things and make staffing last forever, but just to keep everybody in the loop about the whys and the wherefores of things. Administrative discharges, again, questions like, how does that work? How do we decide that? It's a similar thing. We look at the whole picture. There's lots of times there's tension, you know, between the fact that these patients are here for treatment because of the very things that are getting them in trouble. That's what they're here to solve and to work on. So there's tension between that and between the good of the whole community and the patient milieu here. So that's always a bit of a, you know, balancing act. And then,
Sally, can I expound on that?
sure.
A lot of times too, the patient will say, well, Dan put me out, Andre put me out, Sheila put me out, Jessica put me out. Before we, even talk to the patient, what normally happens is the leadership team, we talk and say, hey, we've been dealing with this situation, what y'all think? So as a leadership team collectively, we come up with, hey, this is some ideas of what we think could happen, what we think should happen, and we have our views. And then we call Sally and she give us, hey, this is what we have, let's try to work with it. We try to find a solution. Often the patient have their own ideas of who and why they're being discharged, and it's not always factual. We try to make a decision. I'll give you a good example. If there's a patient that I struggle with, and every day he's coming to ask me 1,000 questions and he's always in trouble, I may say, hey, I don't have a dog in the fight because I'm gonna be biased because I deal with them all the time. So we have the rest of the leadership team to come up with their thoughts and suggestions, and we talk to Sally about it. I think that word of a person's putting me out is a rumor mill that's just the community-based thing. Sally's the director, she make the final decision on what happens. But we all try to pitch in and give her feedback, give Sally our best feedback. And I'll tell y'all this, especially on the evening and the weekend, we solicit the nurses and text feedback. And I'll tell y'all, if the text say, hey, no, don't do that, based on a certain suggestion that they're giving us, we try to stick to that because they're here. We honor your feedback, and we appreciate it, and that's all factored into how we deal with the patient. I think a lot of times things happen during the partial hours and then things happen during residential hours, and it can be totally opposite. From one day to the next, like, wait, what happened? That's not the person I know. Then we end up with a decision on what we need to do with them. Things can change very rapidly. So I think I need to share that, like the whole, it's a big deal. And we value everybody's feedback when we're getting into that. Sometimes we have things that happen, for example, I might be going too far, Sally, but if we have a fight, we may not have time to all talk and say, hey, let's do such and such. It may be something that immediately the text may make a move and move person A to building 5, move the other one to the THH. It may not be something that we can spend a lot of time making the decision on. The text or the nurse have to make a decision, and then we come back administratively and discuss it and get back with the therapist and keep the ball rolling and see where we go with it. So,
Yeah. I want to add to that. I mean, we always support y'all after hours. We support everybody the whole time, but after hours, when y'all are dealing with this without the majority of people here to support you, and it's the techs and the on-call nurse, y'all are having to make decisions, and you call the on-call nurse, you call us, you know, you get feedback, but y'all are the ones, you know, boots on the ground. And we support that, and we trust you. So I want you to hear that from us, and I think you know that because you get supported, but I just want you to hear that from us, that we count on what you have to say a lot. Okay, lots of questions sometimes about patients we readmit. You know, why are they coming back? They've been here umpteen times. Well, you know, part of the reason they're coming back is it's the nature of the illnesses that we're dealing with. You know, these are chronic illnesses. These are chronic illnesses that over time, due to their chronicity, they get worse lots of times. And the reason the patients wanna come back here, well, before I even say that, but we do look at, again, the history, the impact on the milieu. You know, there are times that we would, that personally, I might want to bring somebody back, even though that person was a difficult patient to deal with. But I'm aware, and we talk about it, like, how many difficult patients do we have on campus right now? You know, too many. So sorry, can't have you come back this time. Yasmin and Kelly, you know, y'all know, and they're the ones having to give the news. And then the flip side, we know that it might be somebody who's been problematic, but we want to give them another chance. You never know when it's gonna be a time that some of the coping skills kind of sink in, you know, or when they're gonna actually kind of do it a little bit better here. And that is what we're here to do, is to give these folks with these, with addiction and then chronic mental illness issues a chance to do better. Why do they come back? They feel safe here. For many of our patients, as you know, this is the only place that feels like home to them, which is awfully sad, but it's true. That's why we have so many folks do come back. They're not all problem patients, but that's why we have so many patients want to come back here. What else?
We take care of them.
Yeah.
We care about them.
As healthcare professionals, I think the thought process is, if I'm a real good healthcare professional, why not let me treat them? Then let them go somewhere else, be treated by somebody they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good mindset to have. Everybody in this building, if you work here, you've been here for a while, that means you know what you're doing, you care about your patients, and if the patients come in here and you've been here for a while and they're asking for you, that means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our patients come back because of staff members they feel comfortable and safe around. It means a lot.
Right, and to give you just a picture of this, I pulled the numbers for 2024 of the number of inquiries we get and the number of admits we have. Now, not everybody is denied because of behavioral issues or medical issues. Sometimes the funding isn't right or things like that, so that does skew this a little bit. I mean, you know, it does skew it. But the number of inquiries in 2024, 1,499. That's how many real inquiries we got. How many admits? 409. So that's a lot more that don't get admitted who want to come here. So just so you kind of know that, you know that the admissions team, sometimes they get a lot. Sometimes they get the comments, you know, why are they coming back, you know? Well, they go through a lot of this whole process of discernment, so. Oh, why don't we get appliances fixed right away?
You know, since COVID, we've been in a major struggle with appliances. I don't know if you all try to purchase them at your home, but it used to be Home Depot and Lowe's, they would keep appliance on hand. But now that's not the case. Basically now we 4 or 5 days of ordering it to get it here, and that's if they don't call and say your order was lost, whatever that means. But we struggle with that. We try to keep an extra set of appliances at all time, and also trying to get the ones we have fixed. But the times have changed. and then some of the parts are not readily available. So we struggle with that time frame. We try to, every community, we talk about appliance, almost every community, because it's a constant struggle. One thing that we struggle with that y'all might not know, and Jared actually picked up on this last year, that is human error. So we can purchase a brand new washer or dryer, and if the lid is locked, folks just lift the lid, break the lock. So the washer or dryer may be 1 day old, and we struggle with that. Or the washing powder, folks will put washing powder in the dryer. So the nature of our clientele, we expect things to happen, but the appliance stuff it's been a struggle to get the parts and get things like in a timely manner.
And it might be also a struggle to get the person to fix it, and then that person has time to get the parts. So it's like a double whammy there at times as well.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, a lot of the, I mean, you know, that's why appliances come up so often, is that these folks are just, don't know how to treat them properly at times and just beat them up and break them.
And Sally is the patient. Well, y'all just don't want to spend money. Sally has given the green light. We get what we need,
Right.
and we ordering. Me and Kendrick and Jesse, we ordering, and it's just time. Sometimes it's a time struggle.
Yeah, and and just to say one more thing about that, our process of always having an extra set of a washer and dryer on hand for the next break, we can't even keep up with that, is the problem. You know, we try, so sometimes we'll have that extra set sitting there, but, sometimes we can't keep up with that even. So just so you know.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So what I've experienced in the laundry room is that when the patients use the laundry room as well as the employees. So if we have put clothes inside that washing machine or whatever, they would take them out, throw them on the floor, and now the process has to start over again. So I think giving them privileges to use what the staff is supposed to be using can sometimes be a problem, and the laundry room piles back up with clothes. It looks like no one's touching the clothes, but they literally take the load out, put it in a bag sometimes, and sometimes throw it on the floor. And so we have to start right back over again. So I don't know
So
if
we might
that's
need to look at
something-
trying to solve that as far as like maybe, you know, maybe have it locked and a staff person has to open it and say, oh, there's something right now still, with, you know, something.
And the reason why we actually let them use that one is to keep down confusion. If we go ahead and say, well, hey, I wanna use house 1 washer and dryer, and I live in house 3, it creates
Yeah.
problems. So we kinda had that as an easier access, but we need to look at it.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Miss Sally,
Uh-huh,
I've had, now, it hasn't been very recent, but in the past, I've had some people come to me and tell me that they don't have a towel or they need a blanket. And I'll go and look and it's just like very slim pickings. So I was wondering, could y'all do an inventory or something and see, do we need to purchase more towels, blankets, sheet sets, that sort of thing? Cause I know I've gone to get a blanket out of that cupboard, and what was available was horrible. It was just like really old and scratchy, and it's not something that anybody would wanna use. So if y'all could just take a look at that.
yeah,
maybe.
we'll look at that more. We also depend on,
But I know some are
folks to
probably
let us
dirty
know.
too, you know.
you know, folks to let us know when we're getting low on things. We also are getting new vendors for that. In fact, we've already started with that. But we need to be informed if it's getting low, because we don't want it to be where, 5 patients come up and need an extra blanket and we don't have enough to give.
It's been a while since it happened, but
Okay.
I just thought I would mention
Yeah,
it.
yeah, thanks. But, and if that ever let us know if you see that. We always wanna know, you know, as soon as you know something, see something, so we can get it tended to. one thing, lots of times, I don't, people never say this to me, but I know it's said that, oh, all they think about is money, all they worry about is money. But it's not. You know, anybody who's been in any of our, staff meetings here at times where I kinda lose it and break down, you know that I care about these patients tremendously. But also just to, we give a lot away, again, that y'all don't know anything about. One thing that is constantly being, you know, that we carry financially, Emily knows this really well. All of our HMO, most of our patients who are, who come to us are on Medicare, we all know that, right? And Medicare, traditional Medicare is what really pays for the PHP level of care. So we talk to the patients ahead of time about, hey, you might be on an HMO because it's got the free dental and the hearing, but to be here, you know, you need to be on traditional Medicare. And they say, okay, no problem, no problem. And then we'll help them get back on an HMO when they leave, so they still have those same those kinds of benefits when they leave from here. But what you may not know is that when somebody comes to us on an HMO, let's say they come to us on February 7th, we can do all the paperwork on February 8th, but it won't switch to traditional Medicare until March 1st. So from February 7th through March 1st, they're getting free treatment, completely free treatment. Now, Emily will try to get some days from the HMOs, but that's even harder than regular commercial, I think, sometimes.
I've been working on that report.
Yeah, but that's for a different thing, that wasn't for here, so don't worry. Yeah, so think about, and so many of our patients now, many more, higher percentage are coming in on those HMOs. So for their first, however many weeks they're in treatment before the next first of a month, it's free. It's free. But here's the thing, if we told them to wait and they left the hospital and tried to go home, they'd never make it. They'd relapse again, they'd decompensate again, you know, they wouldn't make it. So that's why we bring them in, and thank God our corporate office supports that, because they wouldn't make it. We all know that, they wouldn't. They need to go from a safe place to another safe place. So that's one example, and then case managers know Dario.
Money issues.
You know, people have all kinds of financial burdens that we look at and take into consideration with their rent, with medication acquisition, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a piece of it that you don't even know is operative, but it's not all about the money, trust me. It's really about providing the treatment to these folks. You know, it is a business, it's a business, and I wanna be able to pay everybody every month. So that, you know, that piece is true, that it's a business, but it's not a ruthless business, okay? Communication in general, and what's leadership's role, that's something that we wanna speak to, like what can we do better to communicate better, and what is our role, you know, really. And, you know, we're here to give you feedback, to give guidance, to help in decision-making and problem-solving, brainstorming.
Support you.
Yeah, to support you in all these ways. But we also, we want to do better at communicating, so that everybody's in the same, you know, in the loop together about things. One of the things that I brought up that I don't know how people feel about this, but I really feel I feel strongly that it would be helpful if everybody had either their phone or a little tablet dedicated to this, that when you're walking around, and leadership included, all of us, and if somebody approaches you, which, you know, we always have these sidewalk conversations, you know, with patients, and something gets talked about on the fly, you can make one little bullet note and the patient's name, and then the next morning in staffing, when everybody's going around, you say, oh, and by the way, you know, whatever, by the way, XYZ, by the way, John let me know that, you know, the fridge and house whatever is broken, and I was able to reach the guy, he should be here next Wednesday, so that when it comes up in group, house whatever is upset because their fridge, you know, then you all know, you know, what's going on. But nobody can remember it all. I mean, I don't think, you know, and then remember to bring it up in staffing. What I'm trying to get at is to help improve that communication. If we would just briefly, you know, touch back on the details, circle back. You know, if you do something, if the therapists do something with their patient that we know was an issue in the staffing, that they bring it back, you know, oh, by the way, talked with John about XYZ, he seemed really receptive, I think it's gonna go well. Or, you know, here's, you know, whatever. But to just kind of keep everybody in the loop, and that's something we wanna do for you, is to work harder at better communication. Is there anything else? Okay, this is something we just came up with. Cindy.
And bullet. You'll be happy to hear that. You're gonna like this. This is good stuff.
No, I'm not.
So, yes, you will. This is good. I like that. I promise.
So here's,
Yeah.
Yes.
so what happens, you know, like nothing, the perception is, nothing happens, and the texts deal with this at night a lot.
I deal with it all day.
Yeah, but the perception is nothing happens when a patient curses at us, right? That's the perception. So here's what we wanna do, and in fact, Dan already let the community know this, that, and I'm not talking about cursing about a situation, okay? One of the things we're here is to help our patients deal with their anger more effectively, more appropriately. Cursing at someone, like, John, fuck you, that's not okay.
Hey, John.
No, that's not okay. That's never okay. You know, but truly, you know, there's a difference between saying whatever, or, you know, about something is different than at you, right? And it's the at you especially that is absolutely never okay. It's never okay, ever, right? So Dan communicated with the community today that if a patient curses at a staff member, okay, that the consequence will be that their therapist will meet with them, and I'm hoping this will become so much a part of the norm that it just gets, you know, brought up pretty briefly, but not by the person at the time, because emotions are high, not then, but the next day, that it'll be brought to staffing, so-and-so cursed at the text last night, literally said blah, blah, blah. And the therapist will give that patient an assignment, and we'll come up with kind of a pat assignment. You can come up with your own as well, but you all might have some good ideas about what, you know, list 5 whatevers, you know, that they then have to bring back to you the next day. Like, that there's an immediate, like, hey, this is not okay, this is not okay. And, I'm hoping that it will become so much like the you know, like, oh, this is, everybody in the community knows this is what happens if you were to actually curse at somebody. That even, it doesn't have to be that therapists are spending all kinds of extra time having an individual about it, that it becomes like, okay, Jason, you know, we're in group and it came up and I'm talking about it, and, well, I understand you also cursed at the person, you know, that you need to give me, you know, by tomorrow, bring back to me your blah, 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 your list of whatever. Just so that there is a consequence to that, directly and quickly.
It's just some of the feedback today. One of the patients mentioned that, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but he said it was freedom of speech, that he can say whatever he wants. And I said, well, you gotta abide by the policies and procedures of this facility if you want us to help you. And he said, well, this is my mouth, this freedom of speech. So my example to the whole community was, we understand that. And you can say whatever you want to, it's your choice. But we got rules for you to follow. And I said, I wanna give you all an example. Anybody ever been to a courtroom? And they were like, yeah. I said, did you have freedom of speech in the courtroom? Everybody was like, oh no. So you know, our patients, they aware. They're aware. I think sometimes it's just, we gotta make sure that we aware to let them make a decision on what they wanna do. But we've let everybody know. I think it went pretty well today. Nobody had any, except the two patients saying freedom of speech, but other than that, everybody else was like, yeah, you know.
That's reasonable,
That's it.
yeah.
You had a question?
And it's, I guess it could take on to what y'all saying, but, just from our end, even on the phone, I know y'all saying cursing, but sometimes it's racial slurs, it's sexist situations. Would that be included in the cursing scenario as well?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying, like, you know,
Not
because,
just-
and I asked because it wasn't, but
Yeah.
it does
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
And just how that would be handled, cause like,
Yes.
you know, it's, nobody wanna deal with it.
right, yeah, no, yeah, definitely, yeah. If it's
Yeah, I was just adding that bullet
directed at-
point just in
yes.
case everybody else is thinking too.
Mhm. Yep.
I just have a suggestion too, like, as a reminder, when we are meeting with them about the assignment or something, you can remind them too that when they were admitted, they signed off on campus rules for profanity and to demonstrate appropriate, interactions with others, so.
Good, yeah. Right, it's not asking anything new, they know.
They signed it, their
Right.
signature is on it.
Mhm. Dominique?
So what happens if they don't comply and complete the assignment? At that point,
Then-
direct them to leave?
Then you'll need to bring that back to staffing as they didn't comply, and then we'll have to look at, there's gonna have to be something else. Mhm. Yep. It might be a further, you know, privilege.
Lost privileges
Lost
or
privilege,
something.
something like that. Does anybody else, is there anything else? I think it's- Can anybody else, does anybody else have any comments or anything else for us?
It's just, anytime what Dominic was saying, a consequence, this does not affect my department, but I know that I hear what I hear in staffing, and I
You
think
got cursed
this is
out
an
too.
area of contention, or they could use clarification.
Okay,
They'll bring up, hey, when you talk to them, is it maybe ADLs, they've been having an issue in their room, and, okay, well, talk to them again as a therapist, talk to them again as a therapist, talk to them again as a therapist, and how you're saying Andre keeps the log. I don't wanna increase the therapist workload, but do they maybe need to have a log in it, hey, after so many times of the therapist talking to them, then leadership, you can expect leadership's gonna step in and support you, and we'll have a chat with them, if you really have met with them a number of times. Cause that's just something I
I
hear.
think
some-
that's, that would be really helpful, and plus, you know, we want to be there to support you, but we also don't want to, like, we're not the heavies, you know? And you have that very intimate relationship with the patients, you know, that you can address things. But if you're not seeing positive, you know, results from talking about stuff, yeah, we definitely wanna support you and wanna know that. Don't want you left hanging, feeling like, this is just a patient that's so hard to work with, and I don't know what to do next.
And there was like one I had recently that cursed at everybody, and it's like, well, I mean, there was nothing I could do, you know, he wasn't listening, he was just angry at any and everything that moved. So, you know, there's some things, that, you know, there's times that we're not effective, or we can't be effective.
Right.
You know, even though it might be, you know, put on us to be able to, you know, wave a magic wand.
No, and that's, don't hear that, but to have some kind of consequence, like, right away and see what kind of impact that has, you know? Like, and y'all might come up with a better one, but an example would be list 5 times that you lost your temper and cursed at someone, and what the consequence of that was, what happened as a result, you know, and
I think
perhaps
that
like
you
give
know,
them some reason to think about this a little bit.
And I see there's times where that can be effective, yes. And then we have some that it's just like, we can't even talk to, because they're gonna
Right.
curse us out.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, that, because they might be angry with us on a regular basis anyway, and, you know.
And that's when, yeah,
We
that's
can see them
when,
like
bring it,
2 hours every morning,
yeah,
so we get to deal with that fun stuff.
yeah. But, yeah, and then bring that to the leadership team and let the leadership team support you and try to have some positive progress with that patient, you know? Yeah.
I think the level of, some of our patients, their functioning level, they may have only went to 4th grade, and that's where they stop. So, if they had that family dynamics, that cursing was the language of the year, it's kind of unreasonable for us to think we're gonna change that in 5 to 6 months. So it's getting us to that happy medium where we can say, hey, John, and y'all probably, if y'all been around me before, y'all probably heard me say this before, man, John, you cursed me 17 times today. Man, tomorrow, let's try 15, we gotta do better. But I'm letting that patient know that, no, it's not right to curse me. I'm not offended about it, and therapeutically, tomorrow we wanna do something different. So I think a lot of that deals with our approach when we are cursed. If we go at it now and think about it, well, the function of this patient may be of a 5th grader. He may be 60, but he don't know anything else. How can we get him out of that mode to have him to not curse as much? I'll give you a good example. I was at an adolescent facility, and there was a couple nurses. I'm picking on nurses, but the nurses was like, "I'm a nurse. How dare these kids not gonna curse me because I'm a grown nurse? Why you working at an adolescent facility? That's all they do. They don't know anything else." It's important to keep that in mind, that the functioning and also the cultural background may hinder them from not cursing so much so fast. It may take some time.
Right.
And it's just us finding a happy medium. I'm gonna tell y'all something. If anybody in here said it doesn't affect them when they get cursed directly at by a patient, then they may have some dishonesty. Because eventually that can get to you. But it's how we deal with it and how we manage it. Cause it can be difficult. It can be difficult. It can. It can be difficult.
Well, I'll piggyback on that, because I get cursed out a lot.
Me too.
So, it's just the way that you, like you say, approach it and handle it. But everybody, this is what I tell them, everybody here are adults. I know it's levels and, you know, of education that someone may stop, but at the end of the day, we're adults, it's no kids here. So I tell them, it's not fair to curse me. You don't want me to curse you, right? Don't curse me. And most of the time that works, but the redirecting is a problem. And if they come to you, or come to leadership, it'll be, go apologize to whomever you did that to. Well, that's a joke. That's like a slap on the wrist. So you apologize to me, and then when I walk out the door again, you right back at it again. So really, you only apologize because you was directed to apologize to me. It wasn't a sincere apology.
Yeah.
And now I have to deal with that on top of the fact that you're still cursing.
So I'm gonna share something with you. I had the idea, when we were talking about this, of having the assignment and they have to apologize. And others on the team said, you know, but the apology is phony, it's false. You know, so, okay, well, let's not do that then. Let's have the assignment where they have to think about this a little bit. And you're right, it's not gonna stop it like cold, you know,
Right.
but if we can impact it, that's our goal.
I'll say this too, Pauline, I'm sorry. A lot of times the patient will come and say, Andre told me to come apologize. That may not be true. Because I'm gonna use Derek for the dollar store. I asked him, I said, do you think you need to apologize to Kiki? Well, yeah. Then he came straight to, I don't know what he told you, but that's what I asked him. See, but that's not what I told him. I asked him, do he think he needs to apologize? So, you know, sometimes our patients, they twist for the moment. They twist for the moment.
They're here
so-
for a reason. Yes, they are here for a reason.
And I teach this in CPI all the time. And my folks that was just in class, should we accept the apology?
Yeah.
Does it matter if it's sincere? Doesn't matter. We accept the apology.
Graciously.
I accept your apology.
Right, we're the professionals. We're
I'm
the,
here to help
know.
you. And let it go. But I'll tell you, that takes practice.
Right.
It takes some practice.
It takes some years.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, yes, she can.
Here she goes.
But as the years go by and you listen with your CPI training stuff, you just brush it off like water off your back. You keep going. And they'll come apologize, I accept your apology, what else can I help you with?
And move on. And hopefully, like you're saying, Jason, you know, it's not necessarily, it's not gonna like extinguish that behavior, but hopefully we can impact it and it get less and less, as Dan's saying, you know? That's our goal.
Yeah, and I think just, you know, being reasonable about that, sometimes the interventions may be very simplistic, you know, from patient to patient. We're just trying to make some change happen, you know, so just really being realistic about the interventions for each patient. You know?
Right.
Somebody might have a to-do list that we're asking them to check off, that they brushed their teeth, they washed their face, they took a bath. Somebody else, it might be we're trying to get them to bathe 2 times a week versus 0 times a week, you know? So just being reasonable with some of that too.
I got cursed today, right after community, because of y'all with them new cars. Yeah, a patient cursed me out because y'all got new cars. And we tried. We just want to steal money and yeah, so I don't know where it came from, but the guy walked the house 6 and met me over there and gave me a good blessing.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate everybody's attention and